just the opposite.
High fly ball, deep left field. Oh, 27 does it again.
God, Fernando Tatis Jr. with a 2-run shot has the Padres on the board. Ball and 2 strikes to Shohei here. Oh,
Got it, got it, got it! 33!
Oh, wow. Where did that one go? That is the 11th.
Driven out to deep center field. Going back, Springer, turning, looking, see ya! Oh, what a shot by Judge! The Yankees lead 1-0.
Right there. And so that was not the home plate umpire that tossed him out. That's the first base umpire, right, Dan Molino?
Yeah, well, I think he threw him out. The first base umpire was going to throw him out. The home plate umpire, Bumgarner, had a couple of words with him after the ending, but obviously when they were checking his hands, they must have exchanged a couple of words there.
So this was essentially an injection where his hand was checked. He was obviously standing on the home plate.
Welcome to Free Baseball. You just saw that intro we have just for today. I apologize for the terrible music choice, but at the end, I'm sure it made up for it. You know, all the eye candy and all. Welcome, David.
Amazing.
Welcome, Jake. I made it to 2 weeks in a row. So, you know, this is a special show.
World record.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get into it. I mean, I've been enjoying baseball lately. It's been kind of fun to watch for me. I'm not sure why. I think, you know, might have something to do with watching. But speaking of which, you know, if I'm hosting it, it's my second week. I say we start off with the Yankees. That's just, you know, I just got done watching like a near no-hitter from Nestor Cortez. He's just warming up for the perfect game he's going to throw next week. I'm excited. I've watched this guy play. I remember seeing the Garrett Cole versus Jacob deGrom conversations, and I don't know about you guys, but I think those conversations are over. Nasty Nate has officially taken over. So, am I right for the hype, Jake? What did you think, and what have you thought of his? You know, some maybe thought it was a fluke early on, but I don't know, not anymore.
He's the ace of New York now. He's been absolutely wild, and he hit a little bump in the road in his last start, allowed a few runs, but today he said, you know what, I'm not allowing any hits. I got to make up for my last start, and he shut down the Rangers for 7 1/3 innings, got taken out after 100+ pitches after giving up his first hit, but he's looking pretty incredible. He doesn't have the craziest stuff, but he does a great job of keeping batters off balance with the different arm angles, the different windups, the plethora of pitches that he features as well. He throws in the low 90s, but that doesn't matter to him. And it must be the mustache. It must be something in the water that he's drinking. Like he's been killing it.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about Nestor. He's just been really, really good for the Yankees. The ace of that team for sure. He's just a freak to start the year.
Yeah, I love hearing this kind of thing because we've been through some hard times, and you know, over here in New York, especially if you're a true New York-based like sports fan. You deal with the Jets, the Knicks, so it's always good. The Yankees are always there to make us feel better over here. But anyway, one of the times I was on here, we went through and we did some little buy and sells, like a buy and sell segment. So let's do like a little mini one here. One guy not as impressive as Nasty Nate, but Jake Odorizzi, which is a guy who was once viewed in a higher regard than he is now, but maybe he's starting to reestablish his name. Is this a fluke? Do you buy or do you sell Davis?
For Jake Odorizzi, it's tough to tell. I'm gonna have to sell on him, just because. I mean, if you're expecting him to be like the ace of the Houston Astros, I just don't think he's really going to be that. He's gonna always be a pretty solid starting pitcher, but I don't really see him as like a de facto ace for them. He's had a decent start to the year. He had a hot week last week, but the strikeout percent's not there. He's just kind of sitting around like a mid 3. It's like a 3.4 ERA, and I think his FIP's like around 3.7. Something like that's a little bit better than average, but not anything special, especially considering how dead the baseball's been this year. I mean, pitchers have been excellent, hitters have been bad, and I don't know. I'd have to sell on him.
Yeah, I totally agree. Here are some stats for Odorizzi. If listeners were wondering, he was tied for second in the majors among pitchers with 0.4 WAR. He had 2 starts this past week. That's sort of helped him make this list. He didn't allow a run across each of the starts. His first one was in Seattle. He went 6 2/3 with 4 hits, no earned, 1 walk, and 3 Ks. That came with just 6 whiffs and an 18% CSW, which is called strikes plus whiff percent. And then he went and faced the Tigers at home with 5 innings, only 1 hit allowed, no earned, 2 walks, 5 Ks. That came with only 8 whiffs this time and 24% CSW percent. As a sort of baseline for people, you want to be around like 30% if you want to be having a good start. And when you up in like the 35 to 40% range, you're like doing really, really amazing. So he's in like the low 20s, below 20. That's not too great. Doesn't really portend more success going forward. So I'm gonna have to sell. And just a disclaimer, I'm wearing this Astros hat. I got it in 2016. So just a disclaimer. Before they won the World Series, so I'm not a bandwagon, and well before the banging scheme.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. So, I mean, you talk about the dead baseball. I don't think we're gonna be talking much about like guys like Mike Trout, and Trout's looked good coming back, but so far the guy leading the league in WAR. I mean, I know none of you guys are shocked about this, but Manuel Margot has delivered. It's early, of course, but in a league where a lot of stars and young players are struggling, you see him just doing his good old thing. Buy or sell, though, Jake?
You know what? I looked at his StatCast page today, and I think I'm gonna buy. His xWOBA is right around what his WOBA's been. He's got an over 300 batting average on the year, and you don't want to like analyze somebody based off their batting average, but his XBA is totally backing that up. I know StatCast is out of whack with the new ball, but he's really looking good. Like you said, he led the majors in WAR this last week with 0.9. He had 26 plate appearances with an even 500 average, scored 7 times, smashed 3 home runs. And the craziest part about the 3 home runs is he had 0 home runs through May 5th. And then hit a home run in each of the last 3 days. So he figured something out, getting the ball in the air, adding to his already good season line. He swiped a couple bags, knocked in 12 runs, and had a 1580 OPS. So I think I'm buying on Manny Margot. Probably not at WAR, like major league leading WAR levels, but he's looking pretty amazing so far.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to counter Jake and say I'm out on Manny Margot for now. Just on a sample size thing, I mean, it is really early in the season still, and he's had a hot start, but Manuel Margot in the past has not really been anything other than like pretty much a league average to below league average hitter. Hits for contact, doesn't hit for a lot of power. So I'd want to see a little bit more before I would buy on him. And he's, his strong stats, like you said, his XBA is up there really high. He's also owning about a 355 BABIP or something like that. Basically, if he's putting it in play, a lot of it's getting down. And he's a guy that doesn't really strike out a lot, also doesn't really walk a lot. Yeah, I would just want to see a little bit more from Manny Margot. I mean, this right now obviously would be his best offensive season, and I mean, for me, I I don't have enough to go off of one hot week or two.
In other words, Davis is like, look, it takes a lot more to gain my respect than a week or two. So that's exactly what he said. So look, so we're gonna continue the buy or sell in a sense, but not exactly. We're gonna talk about some promotions that we've seen over the past week. We've seen some highly regarded prospects and some once highly regarded prospects get called up this week. So let's go through this. So you got MJ Melendez, the catcher for the Kansas City Royals, was called up this week. Is there much to make of it, Davis? Does he have your respect?
I mean, yeah, I like Melendez a lot. He was their number 2 prospect, obviously behind Bobby Witt Jr. I know a bunch of Royals fans on Twitter have been complaining because he hasn't been getting a lot of at bats. I know they're playing like Ryan O'Hearn over him, which is really annoying. But I think it's important to get him in bats. I think he's really good. Obviously, he's a catching prospect, so you have to figure out what you're going to do with Salvador Perez. But yeah, I think this is obviously the Royals are going to go nowhere this year. They're probably going to be the worst team in their division. You might as well get all their prospects up now and get them at bats. I love this for the Royals. Just starting the season with Bobby Witt Jr. and now you have Melendez. It's good for Royals fans to actually see the next generation. Hopefully, their starting pitching comes along too.
Yeah, I wonder who the next call-up's going to be. Melendez, though, is absolutely insane. For people that don't know, he tied for the minor league lead with over 40 home runs last year in the minor leagues. This is a guy that plays catcher, right? So the Royals had the major league home run leader, who was a catcher, and then they have the minor league home run leader, who was a catcher, and now they're both on the major league squad in 2022. So Melendez has got big power. They've been trying him at third base. They've been trying him in the outfield and stuff. He's pretty athletic. They're going to get him playing time. If it requires Salvi moving to DH and Melendez catching, it's going to be done. I mean, the Royals, obviously, like Davis said, not really trying to win their division right now. Maybe they're trying, but probably don't have the ability to do that. But Melendez is really good, and he's going to show off his power at some point. Has yet to hit a home run, but we're going to see one over 400 feet really soon.
So another guy that was called up from the Cardinals, you got Juan Yepez, and actually somebody just offered me him in a deal for it was a mixture of Jazz Chisholm, but he was in there. I'm like, okay, I had to look up and I see he was called up, probably trying to get me now, to buy high, but no, I'm not going to do it. So, but I mean, should I have been so definite with my no factor here, or is it a factor, Jake? Was I wrong?
I don't have his stats pulled up, but he was really good last year in the minors. I'm pretty sure he had an OPS near 1,000, maybe over. He was batting over 300. I'm sure Davis is looking up the stats right now to help me out, but my computer would explode if I tried to do that. But yeah, he's a first baseman for the Cardinals, and he's got a really good hit tool. He's sort of like one of those guys that maybe you could see him being sort of like a quad A guy. Cardinals don't really have a spot for him on the field. They're going to use him at DH because Paul Goldschmidt's a much better fielder at first, and he can't really play anywhere else. But he's got some power. He's got a really good hit tool. He's on the older, actually, I don't know how old he is.
He's 24.
I think he's 24. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think he could be pretty good, but he's already started off pretty well. He hit his first homer of his career yesterday.
Yeah. Yepez is, I think Jake's right on the money with kind of calling him a quad A player. I mean, he hits that's basically all he's done throughout his minor league career, which he's 24. So he's a little bit on the older side for, first time call up. All he's really done is hit. Jake talked about his OPS last year, which was 974. And he had a 149 WRC plus. And in the past 3 levels he's had in 2022 in AAA, he had a 149 WRC plus. In 2021 in AAA, he had a 154 WRC plus. And in AA in the same year, he had a 140. I think it was a 143. 143 WRC plus. The guy just rakes. He's going to be a guy that comes in and plays for the Cardinals, and they'll work their devil magic, and he'll hit 30 home runs and just kind of play every position. Just kind of move him around, which they have a million guys like that just kind of he fits the mold. He's a utility guy. He hits, and he's a pretty good call up. Not one that's going to be super heralded. Their farm system isn't very good, and I think he's probably somewhere around 6 or 7. I'd have to look it up, but he's good call up. Just not a major name, but could be if he keeps hitting like he has so far.
I have a feeling you guys are probably going to say more of the same as it pertains to Jose Miranda, who was also called up. He was called up by the Twins. Is there much to make about this one? Davis, I'm gonna stick with you. What do you expect from him? I mean, he is Puerto Rican, so shout out him. I'm half Puerto Rican, but besides that,
it's tough. It's tough to gauge just because he hasn't had a ton of at bats so far, and he's struggled a little bit. But he's kind of like a guy, almost like Yepes, but also got a little bit of like Ty France there too. He doesn't really have a position that he plays. It says third baseman, but he's not really a great fielder there. It's going to be tough to kind of jam him at first base, which he might get at bats now that I believe Miguel Sano's supposed to be done for the year, right?
For the year, I didn't see that.
Or at least for a while. Just trying to find him at bats, I think, is important for the Twins. But he's basically like a Ty France. He doesn't really have a position, but he hits, which the Twins are always going to need.
Yeah, he was really good last year in the minor leagues. He combined for 30 home runs across AA and AAA. Batted over 340 in both of those leagues with a WRC plus higher than 150 for both of those. And he's a guy that doesn't really strike out. He had a 13% strikeout rate in AAA, and so far in the majors, he has struck out once. So he's been pretty amazing so far. And I think the most notable thing about Jose Miranda is that last name seems pretty familiar. Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton, the musical, is his cousin or uncle, something. I think it's his uncle. Yeah, but he is related to him. Cool. So yeah, he's got Star in his blood. Pretty crazy. But yeah, I think he's a guy that like when you have a low strikeout rate like that, you can bat over 300 and show power. They're going to find a way to play him. They've been playing him at first base so far. Like you said, Sano is out and he just got surgery. So there's going to be an opening for Miranda for a while. So I really think he's going to do really well. And could be sort of Stephen Kwan-esque in avoiding strikeouts. Not that good, but I got high hopes for Miranda. I got him on my fantasy team. So if that's an endorsement, that's a
huge endorsement. If you make it to Jake's fantasy team, you are doing something right with your life. See, when you talked about like the blood and the last name, I thought Juan Miranda way back. Like, I don't know if that name rings a bell, but yeah, he didn't make it. But nevertheless, hopefully things turn out better for him. Now, one name that I'm most intrigued about is because I have something when it comes to higher height prospects that kind of fall off a bit due to whatever the case is, injury, and then they finally get their chance. I'm like, hang on, but the talent's still there, so they might be able to pull something off. So we're gonna stick with the Twins. What do you think about Royce Lewis, and what are the chances that maybe he doesn't reach the hype that he once had for himself, but he could still be a part of this league and a featured part of this league? What do you think, Jake?
He was really hyped. 2017, he was the number 1 overall pick in the entire draft. So he's got the skills, he's got the ability. He just struggles to stay on the field. He struggles to stay healthy. He missed 2 full seasons. I mean, he wouldn't have had a place to play in 2020, but he got injured in 2019, missed all of 2021. So it's been a while for him, but he was killing it in the minors for 2022, batting .310 with a few dingers and 8 steals. So pretty solid. He's a guy that can sort of play all over. They have him at shortstop right now because Correa is out with what they thought might be a broken hand, but it's sort of just like a contusion right now, a bruise. So he's got everyday playing time right now at shortstop until Correa comes back, but he's a guy that can play in the outfield. He's another one of those guys that maybe not be the best fielder, but I think he's got a hit tool. He's super athletic. I think it may take him a couple years to really reach that, because I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of guys where they'll come up either like super athletic and it sort of takes them a while to get their baseball skills to catch up with their athleticism. So like a guy like Buxton on the same team where he came up and he had all the skills in the world, and it's sort of the same thing where like he couldn't stay healthy, but like Buxton wasn't the best hitter in the majors when he was first coming up, and it's sort of taken him a while to grow into that ability. And so I could see that in the future for Royce Lewis. He's really got all the potential in the world.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I was going to say. He really, really mirrors Byron Buxton a lot. He's got, obviously, like Jake said, he struggles to stay on the field. He's gotten hurt a couple times and missed a lot of time in the minors. But he's still really young. It's important to remember that he's not. I believe he's not even 23 yet.
22.
Yep, 22. So yeah, I think it's right on the money to say he's probably just a guy that's going to have to grow into his body and grow into his frame a little bit. And and really be able to get the most out of his insane skill set. I mean, he's really fast. He's a great athlete. He's got a crazy power when he actually gets a hold of it. It's going to be good for the Twins because they're going to try to compete, but they're also a team that's probably going to be like a 500-ish baseball team. And if they think that he can help, it's important to get him up and get him at bats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then another call-up we had was George Kirby for the Mariners. The Mariners were under a losing streak the past couple of games. He comes up, pitches 6 innings, gets 7 strikeouts, only gives up 4 hits. Not against the Orioles, but against the Tampa Bay Rays, which is a good team, regardless of whatever struggles they're having early on. Not struggles, but they just haven't quite been themselves. I mean, what did you think? I mean, it was a nice Mother's Day gift for his mother, I'm sure, and and they won the game in the end, and I think it was a walk-off for an extra innings, one of the two. So, what do you think about that, Davis? Much to take from there. I mean, we both were kind of had some hopes for the Mariners early on, I believe. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I still think the Mariners are going to come good. They just kind of struggled. Baseball is all about peaks and valleys, so they're just in a bit of a valley. And George Kirby could potentially be the one that brings them out of that to start. Like you said, he had 6 innings, he had 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, no walks. According to Alex Meyer on Twitter, he registered the highest game score for a pitcher making his MLB debut in Mariners history. So there's that to go off of. Obviously he's one of their higher rated prospects in a really deep system, which is always good. He's just a good pitcher, and he'll add to a rotation that really needs help. He's their number 3 prospect. Seems like they're emptying the coffers this year with all their young talent. J-Rod and Kellenic coming back up, hopefully, to be a little bit better than what he was last year. But, Kirby's great. I mean, he was sitting like 98 yesterday at points, just cruising for pretty much the entire game. He's got a wipeout slider. It's really good.
Yeah. You hit pretty much everything there. He added a couple ticks to his fastball this year. He was a top prospect for a while for the Mariners, and he's got a crazy slider, and the Mariners have been pretty good at developing their pitchers, as you've seen with Logan Gilbert so far this year. So he enters a rotation that could use a little bit of help towards the back end. And if he can become a sort of top end pitcher, then they could really take off with Robbie Ray, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and that lineup that's actually been pretty solid this year. But yeah, when you got a last name like Kirby,
yeah,
I'm sure people are going to like him. Yeah.
He's going to be one of the most picked players in MLB fantasy drafts, at least in the video game, the show. So just based off that last name alone. So, yeah, he's got that going for him. And one more call-up we had was Alec Thomas for the Arizona Diamondbacks. On a team that's probably not going to have much going on this year. I mean, do you think he has a legitimate shot at proving himself, or is this going to be a short stint? What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team, so just picked him up. Yep. I believe in him. He's on a sort of poopy team, if I can put it that way. Diamondbacks aren't too great. Actually, never mind. We'll hit on that later. They're actually doing pretty well, above 500 after yesterday. So yeah, he's actually on a pretty solid team, as a matter of fact. But last year in the minor leagues, he was really good. He had 18 home runs and 13 steals across 2 levels. When he hit AAA, he batted .369 in just 34 games. But that's pretty solid for jumping up a level and boosting your game to that height. He wasn't as good so far in 2022, but he was still pretty good with a .277 average and 4 dingers and 3 steals. So I think he's one of those guys that can be like a power speed type of guy. He's got all the abilities in the world. I think he's super young. This is his age 22 season. So in the same boat as Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis is in his age 23 season, but they're both still 22. So pretty interesting. Alec Thomas, I think, has got the abilities to stay up and also the playing time to stay up. Like the Diamondbacks aren't that great. They've got openings in the outfield. I think he's going to get all the run that he can handle.
Yeah, I completely agree. Alec Thomas has hit at basically every single level in the minors. He's their number 1 prospect. So keeping him up now just makes sense. I mean, the Diamondbacks, like we'll mention in a little bit how well the Diamondbacks are doing, but there's no reason for them to send him down. If he's struggling, they need to just keep him up and let him ride it out. They're not really going to go anywhere. Their division's insanely hard, as we'll talk about later. But, he's he's their number one prospect, and he's probably going to make way for Corbin Carroll. I think he started maybe yesterday in center. But Corbin Carroll is going to come up and play center. He'll be basically playing whichever other outfield spot. I mean, he's a pretty solid glove, but his hit tool is insane. He's just got really good bat to ball skills, and he's going to be a big piece for the Diamondbacks potentially in their rebuild.
Yeah, so it's always fun to talk about players getting called up because we're looking forward to see what they might bring to the table. Like I said, I was really looking into the Royce Lewis. I just wanted to see him play, see what he was going to do. Now we got some not sad news. It's not the end of the world, but you never like to see it. So Josh Lowe, let's start there. He was sent down. He was hit into I know you guys don't like batting average that much, but under 200. He struck out 27 times. I mean, is this the right move to send him down, maybe to find himself again? Is all hope lost? That's going to be the question for all these guys. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I don't know. Josh Lowe sort of had the similar problems that his brother Nathaniel Lowe on the Rangers had, in that he struggles with the high fastball, which is a big part of today's environment. So that's something he's going to have to figure out. He struggles with velocity, struggles with it up in the zone. he really excuse me. We talked about it when he first got called up before the season started, because he was one of those guys that got called up really early. He's got a lot of athleticism. He's got power speed. He's really fast. He's like tall and athletic, like I said already. So I think he's going to figure it out. Sometimes it's probably tough. We've heard people talk about how difficult it is to hit in the Rays Stadium for some people. Like, it's hard to see. We've seen that with Willy Adames, of course. So I think he will be able to turn it around. He's got lots of potential. It just might take a little bit more seasoning in the minors. I don't think all hope is lost for Josh Lowe.
Yeah, I agree with Jake. He has been called up really early. He's 24, but he's not really got a ton of time, like at the highest level in the minor leagues. He's got a couple, like over a couple of seasons, he's got not even a full season of time in the minor leagues or in the minor leagues at AAA. So expecting him to come up and really, really perform in the Rays Stadium, which, like Jake said, is difficult for some hitters to hit in. It's going to be tough for him. It also doesn't help when players like Manny Margot, who have had like a pretty hot stretch, it's difficult to justify taking at bats away from Manny Margot, who basically should have had his job threatened by Josh Lowe. We talked about that in the previous pod where Josh Lowe should come in, and if he plays well, there's no reason to play Manny Margot. We all know what he is. He's pretty much a league average to below league average hitter. But Margot's been really hot, so you can't really justify like, oh, well, we're going to give it bats to this young guy over a guy that's actively helping us win. So just sending him down to the minors and letting him try to figure it out and get a little bit more coaching is probably a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with you, Davis, because then we also had Joe Adell, who was sent down. He's played in parts of the last 3 years. You're just hoping that eventually he's just going to figure it out. We haven't quite seen it. He did smack a few home runs, though. I I don't think this is the end for him, but what do you think?
No, it's definitely not the end for Joe Adell. He's a former top prospect, obviously. He's got crazy power. Everyone knows that. The big thing that has honestly kind of killed Joe Adell this year so far has been striking out, and he has been an absolute butcher in the field. He is miserable. He has not had a good time playing in the outfield, and he's supposed to be not a great fielder, but around a league average fielder, and he just hasn't. He hasn't figured it out at all. For all of his offensive struggles, he's only worth -0.1 offensive WAR. But defense is completely killing him. He's been worth negative 0.5 or 5.1 defensive WAR so far. He's just not anything worth it there. You can't really justify giving him at bats at DH if you have Shohei Ohtani. That'll never happen. So just trying to get him some chances to really, really figure out his swing again, because we all know what he is. A big power speed guy, like we talked about with Josh Lowe. But if you're not actively hitting for power or hitting at all, you don't really provide anything if you're going to be that bad in the field. They can kind of justify it if you're hitting, but he's not hitting.
Yeah, I was super high on him in the off season. I was picking him up everywhere in fantasy. I thought he was gonna finally break out, one of those post-hype prospect guys that sort of falls off everybody's radar and then breaks out with a big year. But The reason I thought that was because in the short sample that he played in 2021 in 35 games, he struck out 22.9% of the time, which was a stark comparison to his 2020 debut, where he was striking out 41.7% of the time. So I thought, okay, like he's finally got the strikeouts under control. And then he came up and he just like swings at everything. He walked 1.5% of the time. I think that's like 2 walks on the year. Let's see. 1 walk to 24 strikeouts. God, in 66 plate appearances. Yeah, absolutely horrible. That comes out to a 36.4% strikeout rate. Anything 30% and above is really bad. League average is around like 23, 24. So it's absolutely horrible. Davis said he had struggles in the field. That was very true. I think he's got a lot of potential. I don't know if he's still got the speed there. He's sort of stopped stealing bases later in his career, but he's still super young. Like he's still 23 this year. I think he could still come back up and contribute at some point this year if he gets the strikeouts under control, if he learns how to throw a baseball and catch a baseball. Seems sort of like fundamentals, but I mean, I would struggle if I were in the outfield for a major league team playing alongside Mike Trout and Joe Adele, or Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, excuse me. But Adele, they have so many options in the outfield with Taylor Ward coming up and crushing. They've had Brandon Marsh, who was a top prospect alongside Adele, was killing it as well in the majors. So they sort of had to send Adele down or he was going to not have playing time. That's sort of a waste to have him just sit on the bench. He's not going to improve at all if he's not getting playing time. So sending him down to AAA is probably the best option for him right now. And I hope that he comes back strong later this year.
Now you talked about him, was it 1 walk to 27 strikeouts, right? Yeah. So I got a guy that had no problem getting walks in his debut. I don't think it's the end for him either, but he has had a rough upbringing. We're talking about Matt Brash, of course, like when the walks that you don't want to receive. He had, he threw 80 pitches in the first 3 outings that he played this year, right? We had and he hasn't looked good, but it wasn't so bad until he gave up 6 runs against the Marlins, and then he got roughed up by the Astros. I mean, what do you make of it? I mean, a lot of walks there, but people tend to want these guys to come up and just start throwing darts like immediately, and that's just not how things go. So, What do you think, Jake? Is he on your team, or did you drop him? What's going on?
One of my league mates had him. No longer. Had, emphasis on had. Matt Brash, more like Matt Trash. No, I'm kidding. Best of luck to Matt. He's one of those guys that just has like incredible stuff, like the catcher just sets up with his glove down the middle, just say, hey, give me all you got, throw it right down the middle. They won't be able to touch it. And he literally couldn't even hit the glove down the middle. His first start was really good. He went 5 1/3 and he only walked 1 with 6 strikeouts, allowing only 2 earned. That was really solid. That was against the White Sox. And from there, he was pretty solid against the Astros. He walked 6, but struck out 5 and only allowed 2 earned. And then the walk started biting him, allowed 3 earned against the Royals, then allowed 6 earned at Miami, and then 4 earned against the Astros with 4 walks to 3 strikeouts. So he really needs to get that control under control by going back to the minors and figuring his stuff out. But I think he's got really, really good stuff. Like his slider and curveball are insane. He throws in the mid to upper 90s. I think he's going to be really good once he can just learn to throw the ball down the middle, because no one's going to touch his stuff. I think he doesn't need to nibble around the edge. I think he's just a guy that needs to just blow all of his pitches by the batter, and he will succeed greatly, sort of like what Robbie Ray did last year.
Yeah, I was also pretty high on Matt Brash to start the year. He had a really strong spring training. There's tons of highlights. He's all over Pitching Ninja on Twitter. He's just struggled to start the year because he hasn't been able to throw strikes, and when he has been throwing strikes, they haven't been very quality strikes. Looking at his Baseball Savant page, I mean, like you talked about how good his stuff is. He's in the 95th percentile for his curveball spin. But he's also sitting on, 86th percentile for fastball velocity. But then you look deeper and you see that he's in the 19th percentile for chase rate. So he's throwing all over the place and no one's biting. So and his fastball is also really flat, which is an issue with like Hunter Green. We're seeing, guys that really throw like hard now. If there's no movement, or if you just can't command it, hitters are either going to spit on it or they're just going to hit it.
They can handle it.
Yeah, they can handle it now. It's not like 10 years ago where Craig Kimbrell's throwing 98 and no one can touch him. It's a different time now. Most pitchers throw hard, and it's evidenced really by like just how roughed up he's gotten throwing his fastball. He's giving up almost a 400 expected batting average against his four-seam fastball. That's horrible. Like if you can't even blow your stuff by people when you're getting it close, I don't know what to tell you. And I know he's still young too. He's 23. He's 23 years old, and now George Kirby coming up and potentially taking that kind of load off of him and letting him get to develop a little bit more. He should be able to come back and do that. He just has to get that control he has to get his control under control. If you can't hit the zone, you can't pitch. If you can't even get it close enough, like your fastball close enough, or like have it be effective enough to get them to bite on your curveball, what's the point? Like it's going to be a struggle for him, but I'm not out on him yet.
Now, out of all these guys that we've been talking about, this might be the guy that I'm out on. Okay. I mean, I know it's early. I know he's young, but I was never quite high on him. I remember a couple of guys in the fantasy baseball league. Yeah, really high on him. I just never was. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the strikeouts. You strike out 20 times in 37 at-bats this year, third season in. I mean, I'm sorry, Keston Hiura. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm not going to say he doesn't have a spot in this league, but for the expectations that were there for him, I think more or less they should be put to bed. Am I right in saying that, Davis, or am I overreacting a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'm out on Keston Hiura. He's 25 now, and he's striking out almost 50% of the time. You're on a team. Yeah. I think he's sitting at like 48% strikeout percentage.
47.6.
Like hey, that's worse than like Gallo. Like, and I like Gallo. I'll try to justify
worse than Patrick
guys.
Wisdom, you mean?
Right. I'll try to justify guys that, at least are able to produce along with having a miserable strikeout percentage and not really walking. I think his walk percentage this year is like 12%, 11.9, something like that. But
exactly.
In the previous years, it hasn't been very good. He doesn't really provide you any value in the field. He's a butcher in the field, just like Joe Adell is. You basically have to hide him at second, which now there's not much of a point there. Or you have to play him at first base. And I mean, I don't think he's not a better hitter than Rowdy Tellez. And if you look at the rest of their infield, I mean, why would you justify trying to give him at bats anymore? I mean, he's 25. I wouldn't even call him a post-type prospect anymore. He's just kind of a player, and he's not a very good one.
Just kind of post now.
Yeah, he's
no hype. Post.
He's a baseball player.
All post, no hype.
Yeah, I'm completely and totally out on Keston Hiura.
Yeah, I really liked him when he got called up in 2019 at age 22. He hit 19 home runs, stole 9 bases, and batted .303, and that was amazing, but it came with a 400 BABIP and a 30% strikeout rate, so really didn't portend success going into the next year. He still hit 13 home runs, in 2020, so like he still showed the ability, but he batted .212, so his batting average fell like 88 points, so a big drop off there. And then he really just fell completely apart in 2021, striking out almost 40% of the time, batting .168, only hit 4 dingers. They sent him back down to the minor leagues. He couldn't figure things out. And then same thing this year, like Davis said, striking out 47% of the time, 48, batting .216, only a couple home runs. They don't really have a spot for him in the lineup. Like you could think that he maybe could platoon with Rowdy, but Keston is better versus right-handers than he is versus left-handers, and Rowdy doesn't have a platoon split. He's just as good against left-handers as he is versus right-handers, which you normally don't see from lefty hitting first baseman. So I'm not completely out on Keston. I think he had like some amazing numbers in the minor leagues, and he's went to a UC, University of California college, so I got to respect that a little bit, as so did I. But yeah, it's looking bad. It's looking sort of like same situation as Joe Adell, except 2 years older, striking out way too much.
Yeah. And, we don't take no happiness in saying this. I want to see him do well. I want to see everybody do well, right? But it's just not the reality. Now, one guy that did start off well, he had a good 2021. I've been doing a little pattern here. I usually go Jake, Davis, but I'm gonna go to the Cubs fan with this one. Yes. With the Swindell, you're seeing it live. was there too much made of last season? I mean, he is 30, so it's not like we're talking about a prospect who's raw. What do you make of this? And he was, by the way, he was called down and he was called back up. So I don't know what we count this as, but
excuse me. He is 29 years old. He's not 30.
Sorry,
He is not a dinosaur
He
yet.
will. It's his age 30 season, but he's not 30 yet.
Okay.
Don't
I
talk
mean,
about.
I don't know.
Don't talk about my baby boy like this.
I think he's an AARP member now. I don't know. You got to look into it.
It's been a struggle for Frank Swindell to start the year, and it's honestly tough to really quantify why it's happening. Of course, we were all a little bit outlandish. We're like, oh, he's really good, but like he's not hitting the ball very hard. Which, he's a contact-oriented bat. He's not a huge power first baseman. He's more of like maybe a 25 home run a season guy if he gets 162 games. But he's just not hitting the ball very hard. And when he is, he's pretty much just hitting it on the ground right at fielders. It's also very difficult to justify putting him in the lineup because he's a bad defender at first base. They have a good defender at first base with Alfonso Rivas, who provides a lot more value because he's a left-handed bat and he walks a ton. So they have another guy he's probably a quadruple A player with Alfonso Rivas, but he's played better. There's not really reason to justify getting Frank Swindell at bats too when you have a younger first baseman who's playing better. Of course, I want to see him do well. I mean, he's Frank Swindell. He's the boy. He's Frank the Tank. But he's struck out a lot. A lot more than what he's previously been doing. That was basically like his calling card is he didn't strike out very much. And he's sitting, around 22%, which is league average. But when he's striking out previously, I believe the previous year was around 15% or below. And he's walking as much as he's striking out and he's putting the ball in play. I mean, good. You can justify getting him at bats, but now he's not. He's just kind of struggling. So I don't know if sending him down was the correct choice. And the Cubs apparently couldn't make up their mind on that either because they sent him down and then called him back up. I know the tweet that kind of alerted everyone was like some guy just saying, yeah, Frank Swindell's on a plane with me right now. What's going on? So who knows? The Cubs are a weird franchise. It's a weird season around Frank Swindell right now.
Yeah, I was so surprised to see him sent down, and then maybe even more surprised to see him called back up the next day. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, but if you guys have been tuning into our podcast over the off season before the season started, you will know well that I was a big fan of Swindell, almost as big of a fan as Davis is as a Cubs fan. I just thought that he doesn't strike out a lot. He hits the ball pretty hard. He had a really good max exit velo, but this year he's sort of thrown all of that in the trash. He's only been batting 209, but that comes with a 250 BABIP. But so that's like really stark contrast to the 350 BABIP he had last year. So it's sort of like he's probably somewhere in between the breakout he had last year and what he's been performing this year. So he's not like one of the best hitters in the league, but I think he's a guy that can bat 250, maybe like 15 to 20 home runs, but he might not get there if he doesn't turn it around. It's also hard to tell what's going to happen with the ball through the rest of the season. If when the weather heats up, that fix the humidor problems or what, but we will soon find out. I mean, Swindell's back in the majors, so we'll see if he can turn it around.
I think I got breaking news. I'm looking at Davis's body language, right? And I have a feeling he made a call yesterday. He's like, you sent down who? And they called him back up after strongly worded counsel of Davis. So I think I figured this out. Breaking news. Am I right there?
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of clout. Just going back to Frank Swindell's struggles a little bit. I mean, you can look at his Baseball Savant page. You just look at 2021 and then look at 2022, and you can just completely see what's going on. I mean, he's gone from, like I said, hitting the ball solid to now he's rocking a 41.4% topped percentage. So he's just getting on top of everything and beating it straight into the ground right at fielders. He was really good against the fastball and specifically really good against breaking balls last year. And he is now hitting 244 against fastball, and I think he's hitting below 200 against breaking balls. So, I mean, yeah, just he's still not striking out all that much compared to the previous year. It's a little bit of an uptick, but, he's just hitting it straight at everybody really weak. The Hanser Alberto approach. So, yeah. Hopefully he'll turn it around. I love Frank Swindell. It's a cool story. He's a journeyman, career minor leaguer, going to be 30 years old, coming up and having a good season. Always got a great attitude, smiling. Everyone, Sans NL Central fans probably want to see Frank Swindell succeed. It's a cool story, but I don't know.
We're rooting for you, Frank.
Yes, all hope isn't lost yet. All hope is you're not kissing hero. You don't get that crown today. All right. So look, one thing I think we all agreed on early on in the offseason was that perhaps the toughest division in baseball was the NL West, and it has lived up to the hype. Everybody's playing over 500 ball. I still expect. I'm not straying from my prediction. I was talking about. I believe San Francisco is going to be 1-2 with the Dodgers. But what do you make of how things have turned out? I mean, the Padres are legit, so I wouldn't be shocked if they, finish second on the year. But Davis, what do you think so far? With what? I'm sorry, disrespectful. There's a Giants fan here. Jake, let's start with you first, and then we'll
All right. Well, before I give my opinion, let's run down through these standings just real quick. The Dodgers are at 19-7. They have the best record in the majors, surpassing the Yankees, who are at 19-8 entering into their game today. They had a .731 winning percentage, and they've won their last 6 games. Pretty impressive. Second place, you got the Padres, 19-10, .655 winning percentage. And they're tied for the 4th best record in the majors. And then you got the Rockies and the Giants tied for 3rd in the division. They're also tied for the 2nd wildcard spot in the NL. They both are 16-12, and that comes out to a .571 winning percentage. And then you got Arizona all the way at the bottom with an above 500 record at .517. They're 15-14. It's pretty impressive. You rarely ever see this. It's sort of hard for this to happen because you have teams within the same division facing off against each other all the time. So if you have a team at the top that has the best record in the majors, then you've got other teams in the division that are losing at the hands of the Dodgers, So it must be a lot of they're playing outside of their division, they're playing interleague games. So that's what's allowed this to happen. You literally rarely see this. This is a super rare occurrence. It's like seeing the white whale. Probably not that rare, but yeah, it's pretty crazy what's going on in this division. I totally agree with you. I think the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants are going to end up at the top. Davis and I have been known to trash the Rockies throughout the offseason. They're proving us wrong, but I don't see this holding up for the whole year. The Diamondbacks are not a team that we would have expected to do well entering the year. They just don't really have the roster to do this. Their lineup's not that great. Their pitching's not that great. I think they can maybe be a little better than the worst team in the National League, but I don't think that's saying much. It's super early on in the season. We've literally played 30 games, not even. So it's really early. We don't really know what's going to happen, but it's really great to see this. I think it's dope that the Padres are doing so well because they're doing this well without their best player, Fernando Tatis Jr. Manny Machado is carrying them so far. We talked about him in the last podcast, but once they get Tatis back and Blake Snell off the IL, they'll have a full strength rotation, which is already super amazing with Mackenzie Gore up there killing it. And once they get Tatis back, that lineup's going to be insane. I had them super early on in the offseason. In January, I said it was going to be Blue Jays versus the Padres in the World Series. And I sort of went back on that a little. I had the Giants being in the World Series versus the Blue Jays when we did our final predictions when the season started. But I think the Padres are proven that, last year they were looking like they were going to be one of the teams that everybody was looking to beat. It was going to be Dodgers and Padres. They were both projected for 95 plus wins. It was pretty crazy to see that. And now they're sort of hey, last year was a fluke. We sort of fell off at the end, but we're going to come out strong. And then we're going to push even harder in the second half when we get Tatis back. And I think the Giants are going to keep pace with the Dodgers and Padres up there. That was a long-winded, but let's hear what Davis has to say.
Jake covered all of his bases talking about the division. So I'll break away from talking about the divisional standings completely as a whole for a second. And let's just go ahead and give a round of applause to the Colorado Rockies. My man. Baseball's worst franchise, in my opinion, currently in a wild card spot, which is really cool to see. Obviously, we talked about CJ Cron. I obviously am a Cubs fan, so I love Chris Bryant. But they've gotten excellent season so far out of Ryan McMahon again. They gave him an extension. Hey, return on investment. And now random guys like Connor Joe. Connor Joe's one of their best hitters right now. former like kind of like a weird journeyman player. They got drafted by the Pirates, spent some time with the Giants. Now they have a million players that are basically the same as Connor Joe. So it's cool to see. But the best thing about the Rockies, their pitching has been really good. We talked about it, I believe it was last podcast, where Chad Kuhl has been one of the best pitchers in baseball so far. Still got a sub-2 ERA.
And Austin Gomber was pretty good this last week too.
Yeah, Austin Gomber's been really good. Chad Kuhl's got a sub-2 ERA. Kyle Freeland, we talked about him just kind of being, like a league average kind of below guy. He's been pretty solid. I mean, he's worth 0.6 WAR so far, 3.6 FIP or XFIP, excuse me. Daniel Bard's kind of rocking again. Been a good closer, sub-2 ERA, and Antonio Senzatella right up there too. Like they've had a really good rotation full of a bunch of no-name guys, and a really good lineup full of a bunch of no-name guys, Chris Bryant and like the ghost of Charlie Blackmon and Randall Gritch.
Chris Bryant's been injured too for like 2 weeks.
Shout out to the Rockies. Maybe they'll be good. I hope they kind of toe the line, 500 all year. For all the dogging we've been doing on them, they deserve something good to happen to them. So my heart goes out to the Rockies. I hope they continue playing really good.
I'm not gonna lie, I can't believe what I'm hearing right now. Talking about CJ Cron, Chad. I just can't believe what I'm hearing right now. Like if you would have told me this would have been a take like a month ago, I would have called you absolutely insane. I would have thought it was like April Fool's. I would have checked the calendar. And they even intoxicated the Boston Red Sox and my fantasy teams with Trevor's stories. So like this has been what can you say about it? So what I can say about this week? I will say this, like on Friday, I was sitting really good in a couple of my leagues. I'm like, okay, I had the lead in there. And then we get rained out. I'm talking about my Yankees. Of course, most of my teams are going to throw the Yankees. This is how it is. And then Friday we were off. We got rained out Saturday. Long story short, there's been a lot of rainouts this past week. Yeah. And I see a lot of people talking about let's get domes all over the place. No, I kind of I don't like the rainouts, but it's part of the game. I want the weather to be in there. I want to see, if there's snow, let there be snow. What can you do but say, damn? What do you think, Davis? What do we do?
Yeah, rainouts suck. Everyone wants to watch the baseball games being played. I know this specifically hurt the Yankees at some point. I think I remember seeing a tweet at one point saying that they had 23 games to play in 22 days now. And they basically don't have a day off until Memorial Day. So, wow, it sucks for these teams that have games rained out. The Cubs had one rained out too. So it sucks to not watch them lose again. But I don't have much else to say other than that. Like rainouts are bad. Everyone wants to see baseball. We waited so long for baseball, and now it's like, here's 58 rainouts.
Yeah, bro, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it. Saturday, it was just like, oh no, these 2 games are rained out. Oh no, 2 more. Oh, okay, no, 2 more games. We got 6 games rained out on Saturday, all across the East Coast and the Midwest. Dodgers at Cubs, Pirates at Reds, Royals at Orioles, Mets at Phillies, Rangers at Yankees, and the Blue Jays at the Guardians. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. And then the next day, the rain still was there. On Sunday, we had 3 more rainouts. The Yankees, Phillies, and Orioles all had to postpone their games again. So then we got a full weekend of a bunch of doubleheaders. We're going to have some teams playing today that we're supposed to have scheduled off days. I think the Yankees were part of that. Lots of teams that are going to have to make up games later on. It was pretty crazy. I thought for a second that maybe the 6 games postponed in one day was a record. Never got to totally look that up and check that out, but definitely a possibility. That was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe my eyes. It's so tough when you have a full fantasy lineup and you're just like, all right, I'm prepared. And then 12 of your 15 players are all postponed, and you're just like, okay, great. I'm going to score 3 points today. Awesome.
Yeah, just looking it up now, The Athletic, the 6 rainouts on Saturday were the most in a single day since 2018. Oh, okay. And then before that, the most in a single day was in 2008. So, and that was also 6. So, okay, one of the most delayed days for games in baseball history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's insane. They saw what my Yankees were doing in the rain. Somebody caused a spell. We got to slow their momentum somehow, and that's what happened. So you saw in the wonderful intro that we had in the beginning of the show, we saw a little bit of madman. We talk about stuff escalating really fast. That thing turned into a situation. You even had the umpire apologize for the matter, which I really like to see that because it's time to start. Let me be careful because like I don't want to ragdoll too much on the umpires because they have a hard life. You understand? Like they're never gonna be satisfying anybody. But come on, like how do you turn that into a situation? You got him like eyeballing him like that. That was such
So
a bad.
awkward.
So thank God that he apologized, but I don't.
Yeah.
I think he was forced to apologize.
Mhm.
What do you think, Jake? I mean, that was just a whole mess, in my opinion.
Bro, it's the freaking show. It was so stupid. Obviously, as a Giants fan, I'm a big Mad Bum fan. I don't care if he's a hardo. You know, I think he's a great fun player to watch. I'll run through this real quick. If people didn't see it, you saw the ending of it there in the great intro that Isaiah put together, especially for this show. So that was wonderful. So he got ejected during a routine substance check in between innings. But not for having any substance on his hand. He had previously argued with the home plate umpire about balls and strikes. It's classic Mad Bum thing to do. You know, he pitches angry. He's angry at everyone. And first base umpire Dan Bellino took offense to that. He's been known to stare at guys before. We've seen him stare down Jose Bautista after Jose Bautista complained about balls and strikes before. You can go look that one up. But he was the one responsible for checking Mad Bum's hand after the first inning. Normally, you see a hand check. They showed next to Mad Bum's hand check was Eliezer Hernandez hand check. And if you're watching live, it was sort of just like a quick touch. They normally do just like a quick swipe of your hand. All right, not sticky, you're good to go. But this guy was literally massaging his hand with both hands and just staring Mad Bum in the face. And Mad Bum's looking at his hand, just being like, what's taking so long? And then looks up and sort of does a double take. And it's just like, whoa, why are you massaging my hand? Why are you staring at me, bro? And he's just like, you got something to say? And then literally was just tossed immediately. And it was just like, bro, what is wrong? And the worst part about this was after the first inning. Now the Diamondbacks have to cover 8 innings of a ball game because the umpire was, I don't know, being a baby, trying to make it about himself. He was obviously baiting baiting Mad Bum. He knows that Mad Bum's a guy that will he does not give one single F word about anybody else. You know, he's just like, if you're going to try to show me up, if you want to fight, like, let's fight. He said, like, you could see if you read his words, he said, I'll F you up, you know. And like Isaiah said, Bellino issued an apology because he realized how much of an a-hole he was being. He said, I'll go through this real quick. He said, when I began my MLB career almost 15 years ago, I received some good advice. I was told to umpire every game as if my children were sitting in the front row. I fell short of those expectations this week. While I can't go back and change what happened, I take full accountability. I will learn from this accident, and I sincerely apologize. And I'm sure Mad Bum did not accept that apology. I'm sure he still wants to fight him. But yeah, it was so stupid. What do you think, Davis?
Yeah, on that note, Madison Bumgarner didn't accept the apology and said, when interviewed, his response and said, I don't need an apology. The one he needs to apologize to is Corbin Martin. Corbin Martin is the one that had to come in and fill in a lot of the innings because he ejected him in the first inning for arguing balls and strikes. Like you said, it's the ump show. You see this all the time. Maybe not to this extent, but an umpire has to make it about themselves all the time. Not all of them. It's a rough generalization. But in this one specifically, I mean, you talked about, you know, he did the same thing with Jose Bautista a few years ago, arguing balls and strikes. Like, get over yourself. You know, if you're that upset over it, you maybe find a different job. If you genuinely just can't do your job and have someone argue with you, you know, that's part of the job. And just going and instigating something with Madison Bumgarner, who's a known hothead, like just trying to get him thrown out, that's so weak. Like, it's just a weak thing to do. He basically completely changed the game and then administered this cookie cutter apology that he probably had to give out because the league was going to fine him or possibly did fine him and was like, look, you're going to be suspended if you don't apologize. Like, it's the most generic apology that he possibly could have given. I'm sorry. I take full accountability. I will learn from this. No, you won't. You're going to do it again in probably another year. You're probably going to argue with some other hitter or something over balls and strikes and do the same thing. It's just it's whack, and it's annoying to see umpires have this kind of effect on a game that's not making a call. Like, just deciding arbitrarily, I'm mad at you for telling me I stink at my job.
It wasn't even him. He was the first base umpire. He was trying to protect the home plate umpire.
Yeah, like, right. That makes it even stupider in my opinion. Like, I don't know. this was a dumb moment that was easily avoidable and kind of just thrown into the forefront by an umpire that just couldn't control himself and had to let his ego get in the way. Yeah, it's annoying. No one wants to see this.
It was insane.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, this is why people are calling for robo-umps, okay? I'm not one of them, but like moments like this, people are like, look, do we really need these people like running the game like this? I don't know. And to be honest, you see this happen a lot in other sports too, but I just think baseball is just the one that, like, I don't know. And then there's just such little accountability. I feel like maybe a fix for this is like, look, it's starting to happen a little bit more, but people need to become more informed about these umpires, and we need to start just holding them accountable simply because finally seeing an umpire apologize. I don't know if I've ever seen that like in a public statement as such, but we need to see a lot more. I'm sorry, Jack. I know you're going to say something.
All good. I feel like the last time we seen an umpire apologize was the Andres Galarraga blown perfect game.
Oh,
that's what I was going to say. Like that's the last time I can see an umpire genuinely apologize for something that they've done.
And he actually felt bad. That one was a real apology.
That's a sincere, genuine apology. Like, I don't know. It's like you said, I was going to say the same thing and kind of stop to not be long-winded. This is why people want robot umpires. Yeah. And it's difficult to hold these umpires accountable too because of their union. Like they have their umpires union, so they're completely untouchable. Like everyone talks about like,
Angel's still there.
Yeah, Angel Hernandez. Oh, he sucks. Like he's the worst umpire in history. Like, well, he's part of the union, so they're not going to get rid of him. They can't.
Yeah, so stupid. Like Davis said, Bellino was punished by the league, but we're not exactly sure what it was. He was umpiring the next day, so we can only assume that he was a fine, but you never know. Maybe they didn't punish him. They said he did, but maybe it was just like he got ruler slapped on the back of the wrist or something. But robo umps, they don't have emotions, so maybe that's what we need. But shout out Diamondbacks, they ended up winning that game, so. That's what you get, Dan Bellino, trying to get those Diamondbacks under 500, and they said, heck no.
I feel like this is the thing that's gonna like fire the rest of the season, and they're just gonna go off on a tangent and maybe win the whole thing. So this is one I'm not too excited to talk about. Okay, so the Mets, they were down 7-1 in the ninth inning, doing what Mets usually do, and they did something completely out of character, in my opinion, and they made a big comeback that you saw in the intro. Lindor, I mean, it looks like he's starting to wake up. It's his second year on the Mets. I mean, he's had his moments. And, of course, the Panda, Pete Alonso. I mean, even as a Yankee fan, he's starting not to be a fan of that guy. They came back. I mean, I think I can concede the fact that the Mets are going to be at least somewhat of a threat this year. So what do you think? What do you think, Jake? Like, should I care?
Bro, that comeback was absolutely insane. I'm going to run through the play-by-play just real quick. This was the top of the ninth for the Mets. They're down 7-1 in the top of the ninth facing a Phillies reliever. They would later force the closer to come in. But it started with a Starling Marte single. Then Lindor came up and homered. That made it 7-3. They're still down by 5 or 4. Excuse me, I can't do math. Pete Alonso then doubled. Eduardo Escobar lined out for the first out. Jeff McNeil singled. So now you got runners first and third. Then Mark Canha singled. That scores Alonso at 7-4 now. It's only a 3-run lead. Dom Smith came in and struck out. So there's 2 outs now. They're up by 3. Runners on first and second. JD Davis then doubled. You got runners on second and third now. It's 7-5. Brandon Nimmo comes in and knocks in both of those runs. It's now tie game, 7-7. They came in down 6. And then Starling Marte came in and doubled, which you saw in the intro. Shout out Isaiah to make it 8-7. They complete the comeback, take the lead. Lindor grounded out to end the inning. Bottom of the ninth, Edwin Diaz comes in to shut it down. 1-2-3. Phillies go down 1-2-3, and ball game is over. Mets walk away with the win. Apparently they had gone like 0-300 and something in games that they were down by 6 in the ninth. So that was absolutely insane. And the one thing I want to point out, because this comeback was amazing. We heard like Phillies announcers talking about how like the Mets didn't know that the game was over, like they were talking about it during it. They're just like, like game's over. Like, what are the Mets doing? And they totally ate their words. What I'd like to point out is something that Davis and I talked about in a previous episode. Nationals versus Giants. Giants up by 6 in the 9th inning. Tyro Estrada stealing second on a hit and run, tries to score from first on a ball hit to the outfield, is thrown out at home, and the Nationals took big offense to that. This is exactly why you do that, because the Giants also were up by 6. They're trying to build their lead, and the Nationals took offense to that because they're like, hey, bro, we want to still have a chance in the 9th inning. It's like, no, we don't want that to happen. So it's still, this just makes that whole situation, the unwritten rules, like so much stupider, because the Giants were only up by 6. They literally, we've seen this happen where a team can blow a 6-run lead is not that insurmountable, even in 1 inning. It's definitely possible to lose, and you got to win every game in a 162 game season. So I love that the Mets did this to make the Nationals look even stupider, and also to make the Phillies just look like the I don't want to say trash team, but they love turning into a dumpster fire in key moments. What do you think, Davis?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Talking about the unwritten rules, play the games out. You never know what's going to happen. Obviously the Mets come back in a big way and win a game, and they have, they're 20 and what's their record now? 20-14, 20-10. I haven't played 34 games yet. 20-10. Like, the Mets look good, and their offense looks like the real deal. Getting production out of like JD Davis and guys like that. Dom Smith struck out. That kind of sucks, but it's important to play out the games and not give up. And you might have a big moment like this, and it'll be potentially a defining moment in the Mets season, sparking something early like this against the Phillies and their absolute tire fire of a bullpen and arm barn. So shout out to Mets. Boo Phillies. Fix your bullpen. This is ridiculous. But unwritten rules, bad. Baseball, good. And on that note, I think it's a good time to bring in the closer, Jake.
Yes, sir.
Bring in the closer that the Phillies need to have.
We got a really good one today. You got any closing thoughts, Isaiah, before I hit this?
I just wanted to say, when you talk about this, I think back to, I think it was Tatis. Was it last year or 2 years ago? He hits that grand slam, and he has to go on and apologize for hitting a grand slam. That's ridiculous. Like, the players need to speak up too. Like, even if you're on the receiving end of the beatdown, isn't it more disrespectful to stop trying and put your feet off the gas and just basically, like, we don't have to try to beat you? Like, this is, yeah. So I just want to echo what you guys said. So, but yeah, it's time to bring in the closer.
Yeah. Free Baseball is a known anti unwritten rules podcast. I hope everybody knows that. All right, here we go. Bring in the closer. We got a big one today. We got Rollie Fingers, who has a 17-year career. From 1968 to 1985, he started with the A's, went to the Padres, and finished with the Brewers. He just missed out on the first MLB draft by just a few months, getting signed in December, and the first draft was the next year in 1965. He got signed in 1964. He signed for a $13,000 signing bonus, which was probably a lot of money at the time, and was with the Kansas City A's when they were still in Kansas City. He debuted in September of 68 in the first year that the A's were in Oakland. He was just 21 years old, but this debut was not what his career was going to look like for the rest of the time. He went 1 1/3 innings pitched, allowed 4 hits, and allowed 4 earned runs with no walks and a strikeout. Wasn't the way he wanted to start. That was his only appearance in that 1968 season. And in the minor leagues, he was a starter. He came up as a swingman. He started 35 of 153 games through his first 3 full seasons, which is 23%. But he also finished a lot of games, finishing 67 of 153 games, which is a 44%. So, like, swingman, he was finishing games. He was starting games. He was sort of just filling roles that he needed to fill, and he was pretty solid. But then he started to break out in 71 and 72. 71, he had 17 saves and a 2.99 ERA. 72, he had 21 saves and a 2.51 ERA. And both of those seasons came with 100-plus strikeouts, which is something that you don't see often from relievers, even in this day and age. That solidified himself as one of the game's top relief arms. And then that season, that 72 season in which he had a 2.51 ERA, prior to the season, he grew the mustache that everybody knows him for, the amazing handlebar mustache with the curlies at the end. He grew that in 1972 to win a $300 bonus from the owner, Charlie Finley, for best mustache on the team that that he made this this bonus. He made this bonus available to the team after Reggie Jackson entered the season with a beard, and teams or his teammates were scared that he would be sort of shut out from the team for having a beard, and so they all started growing facial hair. And then Charles Finley, he leaned into it. He said, all right, whoever can grow the best mustache before the season starts gets $300. And Raleigh Fingers said, all right, bet. Let's do this. And then that started a run for the A's in which they were the best team in baseball. 1972, 1973, and 1974, they won the World Series in 3 straight years. One of the first modern three-peats after the Yankees were a team to do that for a while. And in that last year, in 1974, Fingers came away with the World Series MVP. And then he started a string of 4 straight All-Star appearances between 73 and 76 with the A's, where he was amazing. I'm going to run through some stats real quick, so try to keep up. We had 126 innings in the first year, 110 strikeouts, 22 saves, 1.92 ERA, and a 1.15 WHIP. Incredible first year. Second year, his second All-Star appearance, 119 innings pitched, 95 Ks, 18 saves, 2.65 ERA, 1.12 WHIP, finished 16th in AL MVP. Then 75, 126 innings pitched, 115 strikeouts, 2.98 ERA, and a 1.01 WHIP. He led the majors with 59 games finished 3rd in AL Cy Young Award voting and 4th in AL MVP voting, a precursor to what we'd see later in his career. And then 1976, the last of 4 straight All-Star appearances there. He threw 134 innings, 113 strikeouts, a 2.47 ERA, and a 1.17 WHIP, finished 8th in Cy Young and 19th in AL MVP. That's amazing. You see those over 100 innings pitched. This was a different time for relievers back then. You do not see that anymore. You see guys getting up to 70, 80, and that's like amazing. Going over 100 innings, going 130 innings. This was a guy that would come in the 6th inning, in the 7th inning, and finish off the last few innings of the game and get the save. And this is why he is one of the greatest relievers and why he is in here to close this podcast off. And we're only through the first few years of his career. This is a long one. He was one of the first free agents. The first free agency was on the horizon as the reserve clause was getting thrown out. Owner Charlie Finley attempted to sell Fingers and a few of his teammates to teams. He tried to sell Vida Blue to the Yankees, tried to sell Raleigh to the Red Sox, and the commissioner, Bowie Kuhn, blocked it and was just like, this isn't good for baseball. Reminiscent of the Chris Paul trade in the NBA from a few years ago, or more than a few years ago. But I know Isaiah knows about that one. So he ended up signing with the Padres in the first ever free agency prior to 77. In his first year, he threw 132 innings. He led the majors with 35 saves, led the majors with 69 games finished, had a sub-3 ERA just barely, and he finished 14th in NL MVP voting. And then he made his only All-Star appearance with the Padres in the next year in 1978, 107 innings, 37 saves, a 2.52 ERA, and a 1.05 WHIP. Pretty solid, but now his career is about to take off. He won Raleigh's Relief Man of the Year in those last 2 seasons I just spoke of, and then won it again in 1980. He was traded to the Cardinals in December of 80, and then the Cardinals were just like, I don't know about this. 2 days later, they traded him to the Brewers. It was crazy. And then he had his best year the following year, or in that year, in his first year with the Brewers, 1981. He only threw 78 innings, so he was used more as like a modern relief pitcher. He led the majors 28 saves, not that many, but he had a 1.04 ERA, his career low that came out to a 3.33 ERA plus, which was the best of his career as well. A 0.87 WHIP. That was his 6th All-Star appearance, his first with the Brewers, and he won his 4th Raleigh's Relief Man of the Year award, and most notably, that incredible season led to him being named the AL Cy Young Award winner. Back then, the Brewers were in the American League, and then on top of that, AL MVP award winner. He was a relief pitcher that won the MVP award. It was absolutely crazy. He had his final All-Star appearance the next year. This man is crazy, and you're about to find out that he was rewarded for how crazy his career was. 82, 79 innings, 29 saves, 2.6 ERA, 1.04 WHIP, finished 16th in AL MVP voting. He missed the next season with an injury, but returned for an 84 and 85 seasons, his last 2 seasons of his career. By then, he had the major league record for most career saves at 341. That would obviously later be surpassed and ultimately surpassed by Mariano Rivera, who will close out this podcast someday in the future. But he was offered a contract after that season with Pete Rose's Reds in 1986. Davis wanted to make sure I mentioned this one. Owner Marge Schott, who we had mentioned in the suspension episode when we were talking about some of the suspension that Bauer got. Marge Schott was mentioned as one of the owners that got suspended for being racist. So she had a clean cut policy. She said no mustaches, no beards. And you want to know what Fingers said? He said, well, you tell Marge Schott to shave her Saint Bernard. That's a big old hairy dog. And he said, I'll shave my mustache if she does that. Goodness. So that's a legendary quote there from Raleigh Fingers. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992 as a reward for that incredible career that I just covered in like 10 minutes. It was just such an incredible career. I didn't want to leave anything out. So for his career, finished with 25.6 Baseball Reference WAR, 1,701 innings pitched, nearly 1,300 strikeouts, 1,299 to be exact. He had a 2.90 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP. That's for his career, and he finished with the 15th most saves of all time, 341. Remember, he retired with the most, and now he's all the way down to 15. And we have breaking news right at the end of the podcast. Players of the week for the major leagues. The Rays, we already mentioned Manuel Margot, 500 average, 1580 OPS, AL Player of the Week, and your NL Player of the Week. Do we have any guesses for people that haven't seen it?
NL Player of the Week.
He got a little rough and had a 2-homer game, 8 RBIs.
We're not talking about Rowdy Tellez, are we? No.
We are talking about
Yes.
Rowdy Tellez. There you go. Milwaukee Brewers, Rowdy Tellez, first baseman. He is your NL Player of the Week with 3 homers, 12 RBIs, and 1107 OPS. What a week from Rowdy and from Manny Margot. They're here to shut down the podcast with the all-time great Raleigh Fingers with his amazing mustache. I should have drawn one on my face for this part or cut something out of paper, but he is here to shut down this podcast. There we go. Well, this is one of our greatest podcasts so far. Tune in next week, next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Athletes Hub. There you go. And also tune in next week to the basketball podcast. It won't be happening today. That's why we got to go a little long and cover everything to the extent that we like to. So this was a wonderful podcast today. Any closing remarks, fellas?
Nope, I'm all good. Just make sure you join us next Monday. We'll talk more baseball.
Yes, and check us out. We might actually do D-Takes from tomorrow, so check us out.
Sounds good. All right.